Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if it was a skinwalker, but let me know what you guys think at the end. So this one night I went out with these two girls, and I'm not gonna lie, I was drinking, so I wasn't fully there. I wasn't like drunk, pero estaba tomando, so of course you know what I'm trying to say. So there was one girl that was driving, I was sitting in the front seat, my other friend was in the back seat, and she was like, well, where should we go now? So then we all agreed to go to this little town. It was like 37 minutes away from us. Now this little town, it's known for like native culture, witchcraft, all different kinds of stuff like that. Now it was already pretty late at night, like everything was closed, everybody was home, there was no one out on the streets, and we finally get to the little town and we park, and I'm like, hey, let's go to the park. Now this park, the woods is right next to it. We weren't thinking anything of it because we've already been there before, like we weren't scared of it. So then we walk to the park, we get there, there's two giant swings, and my friends are swinging on the same swing and I'm on another swing by myself. Now like I said, I was drinking, I was having the time of my life on this swing. It was so much fun. And then all of a sudden my friends get off of the swing and they're so like I said, I was swinging on this swing, I was drinking, wasn't fully there, having the time of my life. If you've never been tipsy or drunk on a swing, you're missing out because I was like on a roller coaster. But while I'm swinging, I see that my friends jumped off of the swing. They're standing in front of me and they're talking, right? I remember that I was laughing. I wasn't really paying attention to them. I thought they were just having a random conversation. When all of a sudden, one of the girls goes, Stephanie, run. When I tell you I jumped off that swing, I didn't waste any time. But what makes it even worse is that I was wearing slippers. So they booked it. They were already like way ahead of me. When I started running, I took off my slippers and I was running in the dark. So then I managed to catch up to them. We're still running, and one of my friends looks behind me, and then we just keep running. So then we finally get out of that park and we're all standing there and we're talking. I'm like, hey, what happened? And my friend said, I heard someone scream and I thought it was you. It sounded just like you, but like almost like a little girl version of you. But when we turned and we looked at you, you were laughing, you weren't screaming, and it sounded like it was really close but far at the same time. And then she proceeded to tell me that when she looked behind me when we were running, she thought she saw a black figure right behind me. I was so scared. Yo acá toda borracha, playing in the swing, and there's something out there. And of course we left because we were not staying after that happened. But moral of the story, don't wear slippers when you're drinking, and also don't go to a place that's known for this type of stuff in the middle of the night while drunk.
I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister and her name's Ashley, and we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're like just talking. And my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, you need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night. And I look at him and I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. Like I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night. Then my boyfriend hops in the conversation and he's like, no. He's like, no, I hear Ashley go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her. So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, we don't go into each other's rooms, do we? And we agreed that we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about.
So this one day after school, I decided to ask my mom if I could have a sleepover at my friend's house. For reasons I will not be calling her real name, I'll call her Tracy instead. So after hours of begging and begging, she finally let me go. It was on a Thursday night and everything was perfectly fine. We watched movies, we listened to music all day. But then when it was time for me and her to go to bed, she seemed really off. She started getting really nervous all of a sudden. So I was like, hey, what's wrong? And she was like, I don't feel comfortable sleeping at my house. So because she trusted me, she ended up telling me why. She then said, so I see this dark figure in my room every night and it kind of looks like my dad. I always hear him groaning and I could see that he's looking at me. She then told me that she thought she was probably just paranoid considering the fact that her dad came home late and as soon as he got home, he wanted to just get some rest. So he would just go to bed or lay down. She then told me that this had been going on for months and she always tries to get up to go up to the figure, but it disappeared every time she turned around for a second or even blinked. So now I have insomnia. So I told her, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. You can go to bed. I'm gonna stay up and keep a lookout. The night rolled in really fast and I ended up falling asleep for a little bit and I woke up to hearing my friend crying in the corner. She then tells me that she can sense him, so she kept her eyes closed because I told her to. So I told my friend to close her eyes because I could tell she was really scared. And I told her I would look instead. So then at this point, it was 2 in the morning and I see the figure standing in the room. I start yelling at it for it to leave, so I pulled out my phone and I started recording, and that's when I seen the figure run away. And let me tell you guys, it ran away really fast. We stayed in the room and morning finally comes in and I decided to tell my friend that we should pretend to be sick. I ended up texting my mom everything that had happened that night. She texted me back and she was like, I'm coming to pick you up right now. So then after that, we ended up going up to my friend's mom and I showed her the entire footage. And after I showed her the video, she called the cops cops immediately. So then at that point, me and my friend are really confused and we're just sitting there waiting for the police to show up. But my mom ended up showing up before the police could. And when she showed up, she just grabbed my arm and she's like, it's time to leave. I don't want you staying at this house anymore. And then literally as we're leaving, the cops ended up showing up to my friend's house. That's when I seen my friend's mom show the cops the video. And they ended up arresting my friend's dad literally right after that. So then supposedly the mom had seen this figure go into her daughter's room every single night, but she was very close to like spiritual things. So she just always figured that it was something spiritual coming in to check on her daughter, but she would always... So the mom always thought that it was just a spiritual thing checking on her daughter, but she also thought that maybe she was just hallucinating. And then she realized that she would never see her husband there after he came back from work. After I showed her the video, she seen the bracelet that she had supposedly given her husband a long time ago, and it was on his wrist, and it was a red and black bracelet. And it stood out to her in the video that I showed her. So that was kind of like confirmation that it was her husband. After that, my friend's dad was arrested for CP and HT. And apparently this wasn't the first time that he had done this too. And the only reason that he was arrested for HT was because the police officers later found notes of what he was going to do to his daughter. And there was evidence of what he had done to his other children with his other baby mamas. After that, my friend and her mom moved away. And the dad was just barely locked up for good last year. He has 50 more years to go in prison. Since then, I haven't gone to any sleepovers at any of my friends' houses. Until recently, I got into touch with her right as I was about to enter high school, and she told me thank you for everything. She also said that if I didn't stay that night, she probably would have gone missing or would have been reported on the news missing. So she thanked me and told me she's starting a new life, and she also wants me to start a new life as well.
This is why you should never study too much. Kenzie's mom was obsessed with her getting good grades, but she could have never expected the terrifying things that this would lead to. Eventually, Kenzie's mom bought her an old school desk so she could study even more at home, but this was a grave mistake. Soon, Kenzie started to feel a sharp pain in her back, but only when she sat on the desk. This got worse and worse until she just couldn't study anymore, but no one could expect the true reason behind why this was happening. Kenzie's mother started to worry, so they brought her to the doctors. Mysteriously, there was nothing wrong with her, but one day by accident, they found a secret none of them know. Something truly horrifying was happening behind the scenes, and nothing about Kenzie's mysterious back pain or the desk is what they think it is. Follow for part 2.
Story time. I babysat a lot of kids in my neighborhood, and there was this one night that I was babysitting a 2-year-old. It was around 10 o'clock at night, so the kid was sleeping, and I was just sitting in the living room. In the living room, there was a big TV, a couch, and then behind me, it was a wall with a giant window. So it was really late at night, I had nothing to do, so I was Snapchatting my friends. If you Snapchat anybody, I'm sure you know that sometimes you Snapchat really fast. You don't even know or look at what you're sending. I was mass snapping all my friends, and then one of them replied 10 minutes later. And he said, "Who's that guy behind you?" And I turned around and no one was there, so I'm like, he's playing a joke on me. But then I get another Snapchat from this friend I had, and she lives all the way across the country. They don't know each other. And she said, "I think there's someone outside." So I was really freaked out because I was alone, there was a giant window behind me, apparently there was someone outside. I wasn't gonna call the child's parents because I didn't want to freak them out, but I was scared. So then I went around the house, locked all of the doors. Sorry, it's a really long story, like for part 2.
When I was in 6th grade, I went to go visit my little cousins at their house. Their house was right on the edge of these woods, and the woods were really thick, and our parents always told us not to go there. And one time I asked my mom why, and she said because when people do bad things, they sometimes go and hide in the woods. I was staying at my cousin's house for a week on this one trip, and whenever I was bored, I would go look out the window and watch the woods. Usually it was pretty boring, and I would just be staring at trees, but one day it was like 5 p.m. and the sun was setting, so it was getting dark, and I saw something moving in the woods. I told my uncle, and he said it was probably just an animal. And I told him no, it was tall and looked like a skinny lady. And he said I have a creative imagination and it was probably just a deer. But then a few minutes later, I heard my aunt and uncle whispering in the kitchen. My aunt was talking about a woman from the psychiatric hospital in their town who had escaped. Their house was like 15 minutes away from a maximum security psychiatric hospital for criminals with mental illness. And then they saw me listening to them in the doorway and they stopped talking completely. A few days later, in the middle of the night, I heard a noise downstairs.
This is why you should always keep pictures of your parents. A little girl named Olivia who lived a very quiet life decided to check her homework assignments that were posted online. The teacher posted that they needed to write down their favorite memory with their family as well as bring a photograph. Olivia then writes about how her and her mom play dolls every night in the basement before bed and that she has a lot of fun doing so. She finishes her paragraph and then looks in her dad's drawer for a photograph of mom. She only found pictures of her mom from high school but decided to use it anyway. Olivia goes to bed and wakes up the next morning. Once she arrives at school, the teacher then says, "Let's start presenting our project." Then the teacher called Olivia's name to present. Olivia then begins to read about how her and her mom play dolls every night and then pulls out the photograph. As soon as Olivia pulled out the photograph, her teacher's face goes numb. She then asks Olivia if she can take a closer look at the photograph. She then recognized her mom as one of her previous students. Then the teacher asks, "Where did you get this photo?" Olivia says, "My dad keeps them in his drawer." The teacher, shocked, sits down Olivia and pulls out an old newspaper. The newspaper headline, "Local high school teen murdered, boyfriend gone missing." The teacher then looks at Olivia and says, "Your mom has been dead for 14 years."